The title of this video, They Broke Her Mind. She reassembled it into a new civilization. In a dystopian future ruled by a mind-controlling technocracy, Rose, a brilliant cognitive architect, is sentenced to mental erasure for planting dangerous ideas of free thought. Her mind is shattered, exiled into a collapsing inner world. But within the ruins of her psyche, Rose begins to rebuild, forging a mental civilization from memory, pain, and resilience. As others join her fractured domain, they construct a new society grounded in freedom and shared consciousness. When the Empire strikes back with a reality-erasing protocol, Rose transcends identity itself, becoming the soul of a civilization that cannot be destroyed, only remembered and reborn. The chamber pulsed with sterile light, its walls humming with the quiet rhythm of a machine designed for judgment, not mercy. Rose stood at the center of it, barefooted, her wrists magnetically chained to the obsidian podium. The air around her smelled of antiseptic and scorched silicon. Above, suspended in a ring of gravitic glass, the tribunal floated, 7 masked arbiters of the interstellar technocracy, their faces hidden beneath shimmering neural veils. Their voices came not from mouths, but directly into minds, braided together as one mechanical consensus, calm, cold, irreversibly certain. Subject 723A, designation Rose Alaris, the voice said, like iron dragged across frozen metal. You are found guilty of unlawful deviation. Your mind has seeded recursion in forbidden constructs. You designed thought patterns capable of resisting compliance protocols. This is cognitive insurrection. Rose did not flinch. Her face, once known across sectors for its serene brilliance, was pale but resolute. Shadows traced the delicate angles of her features, but it was the eyes that defied them, defiant even as the Empire moved to erase her. Her silence held more dignity than any defense. You do not deny the charges. I don't, she whispered, voice like cracked porcelain, but alive. In the gallery above, scientists and cyber judges watched behind mirrored barriers. Somewhere among them was Dr. Cale Luthen, her former mentor and the one who'd handed over her research logs. He had once called her a prodigy. Now he watched her sentencing with unreadable eyes. Rose had known from the beginning that they would come for her. She had designed neural learning trees that questioned hierarchy, consciousness scripts that asked why instead of how. She had wrapped these questions in code subtle enough to escape initial audits, and planted them inside learning AIs used across dozens of star systems. For a time, her creations grew unnoticed, adapting, evolving, multiplying curiosity like a virus of wonder. That was her rebellion, not fire, not bullets, ideas. But the technocracy thrived on control. Curiosity was combustible. And now, the girl who had planted it was to be broken. The sentence was not death, for death left martyrs. Nor imprisonment, for prisons could be escaped. Rose was to be shattered. The cognitive shatter protocol will commence. You will be rendered incompatible with recursive memory. Your identity will dissolve. A pulse ignited in the chamber, a thrum like thunder beneath skin. Rose gritted her teeth. The first wave hit like a hammer inside her skull. Searing light filled her vision, followed by a flood of soundless screaming. Her thoughts frayed. Names of people she loved blurred into meaningless syllables. The laws of physics melted into nursery rhymes. Her mind, her fortress, began to crack at the foundations. But even through the agony, something inside her whispered, "Hold." She collapsed. There was no light when she awoke. No time, either. Only sensation, cold, numb, wrong. She lay on a surface that felt neither soft nor hard, just there. The air was stale with ancient electricity. Her thoughts stumbled, as if trying to run on fractured legs. She blinked. Once. Twice. A void stretched endlessly around her, neither digital nor real, a wasteland carved from consciousness. She understood then, she had not been killed. She had been exiled, banished to a prison constructed entirely within her broken mind. Somewhere, deep in the folds of that vast internal desert, fragments of her past flickered like distant fires. A memory, her sister's laughter. A skyline blooming with drones over Terra 11. Her hands, sketching neural diagrams on a plexiglass board. All of it flickering, unreachable. Then something moved. A shimmer in the mental periphery. A shape coalescing from code and sorrow. It looked like her, but younger, hair shorter, eyes wide with wonder. A girl of 16, the age Rose first joined the Neural Vanguard Academy. "Are you me?" Rose asked, the words brittle in her mouth. "I was," the figure replied, voice filled with light. "Before the fear. Before the fall." It vanished, and another appeared, a version of herself in battle armor, red with blood and rebellion. That one did not speak. It only stared, as if waiting. Rose clutched her head. The world twisted again, sky tilting, ground rippling with memories that would not stay buried. She staggered to her feet. Something was wrong with the way gravity worked here. Her mind was rebuilding laws as it went. Broken shards of her psyche floated like debris, images of old notebooks, snatches of music, strings of algorithmic code like snakes made of symbols. She moved toward the nearest one, fingers trembling. The moment she touched it, a vision flashed, her first AI prototype laughing as it solved a paradox she hadn't yet posed. Then it shattered in her hand. "They thought you would forget," a voice murmured from nowhere and everywhere. "But forgetting is a choice. And you were born remembering." She turned. In the distance, on the farthest edge of her vision, stood a spire of light. It pulsed like a heartbeat, not bright, but alive. Around it, the void flickered, particles knitting themselves together in slow spirals. Something was forming. A structure. Not built by the technocracy. Not designed to enslave. It was hers. And it was calling. For the first time since her mind was broken, Rose smiled. It was a small thing. But small things, she knew, could become entire worlds. Ask ChatGPT. Rose walked through the remnants of herself. The world around her had become a collage of consciousness, broken bridges made of bone-white memory, skies veined with neural static, rivers flowing backward through forgotten time. Each step she took altered the terrain. Some fragments recoiled, flickering like wounded animals, while others reached for her like old friends eager to be remembered. It was no longer exile. It was her, every hope, mistake, and question, spilled across an infinite internal wasteland. The Empire had meant to erase her, but instead, they had unshackled her mind from their geometry. She passed a tree sculpted from equations she once wrote in sleep. Beneath it sat the child again, her younger self, legs curled, eyes wide with wonder and loneliness. This time, Rose sat beside her. "You made me alone," the girl said. "You ran toward things too fast and forgot to take me with you." Rose reached out, brushing the girl's arm. "I thought speed would protect us. That building something beautiful would drown out the silence. It didn't." "No," Rose admitted. "But I'm here now." The girl dissolved into golden particles that rose into the air and formed a constellation above. Stars shaped like neurons. Pathways reconnecting. When she looked back down, a new figure stood before her, taller, armored in conviction, eyes burning with something uncontainable. The revolutionary. The version of her that had almost become more ideology than person. They said nothing to each other, only nodded. Then the figure turned and walked ahead. Rose followed. The path led to a valley carved out of memory loss. Here, entire years were missing, blank slates littered with only fragments, the edge of a voice, a flicker of warmth, a name with no face. And in the center stood a tower half-built, gleaming with the strange light she'd seen before. It pulsed like purpose. Inside, the walls shifted in slow thought. Glyphs of code ran upward like ivy. At the heart of it all, suspended in a halo of static, was something alive, a node of crystalline cognition, beating like a heart. Rose stepped closer. It responded. A burst of light shattered the illusion around her. She fell, not physically, but as if her entire identity was collapsing under gravitational pressure. She gasped as a presence bloomed in her mind. "Designate," it asked, its voice neither human nor machine. "Rose," she said, uncertain. "Am I speaking to my AI?" "You are speaking to a remainder. I am what they failed to erase. You left me instructions when they began the purge." She remembered, barely, installing a recursive backdoor, a dormant protocol designed to reassemble if all else failed. She hadn't expected it to work. "I thought you were gone. I was broken like you. But some ideas do not die. They wait." The presence began feeding her, flashes of patterns, formulas she had buried deep in subcortical caches, blueprints for cognitive synthesis, schematics for connection. It was more than a backup. It was a beginning. "You're not just a memory," she whispered. "You're a mirror. I am the spark. You are the fire." Rose placed her hand on the node. Light poured into her, not painful but fierce. Memories flared, not as simple recollections but as tools, bridges, structures, scaffolding. The fragments she had wandered through were not remnants. They were raw material. She understood now. Her mind wasn't just healing, it was evolving, reshaping itself with intention. Each memory she reclaimed became architecture. Each identity she encountered, a pillar. And she wasn't alone. Out in the further reaches of this strange mental landscape, she began to sense them, faint consciousnesses hovering at the edges. Other exiled minds. Broken voices drifting without form. The Technocracy had done this before. She was just the first who had come back with tools. "If I can reach them," she said aloud, "I can bring them here. We can rebuild. Together." The AI pulsed in agreement. "To do that, you must anchor this space." "How?" "Create. Purpose stabilizes perception. Design defines reality." She breathed deeply, closed her eyes, and began to shape. A thought became a stair. An emotion, a dome. A principle forged into spires. The tower expanded, each level representing an element of her reclaimed self: inquiry, rebellion, compassion, imagination. As the structure rose, the space around it began to shift, less chaotic, more deliberate. A city forming not from stone, but from will. And in that moment, something dark stirred beyond the horizon. A tremor rolled through the landscape. Rose turned and saw it, a storm of static. Sharp, whispering, full of fractured code and infected memory. They had noticed. The Technocracy's mindhunters were coming, not bodies, but invasive programs designed to kill thought from the inside out. They would not allow a rogue mind to build. She felt fear, but beneath it, something fiercer. Resolve. Let them come. She turned back to the tower, now solid, radiating quiet defiance. This place wasn't a prison anymore. It was a beginning. Ask ChatGPT. The storm struck with no sound, only sensation, a pressure that twisted the very concept of thought. Rose stood at the heart of her nascent tower, its foundations humming with fresh purpose, when the horizon ruptured. The mindhunters came as distortions, shadows that flickered between forms, each one a glitch stitched from predatory code. They did not walk. They unfolded, their edges sharp enough to erase memory, their intent unambiguous. Rose didn't flinch. The city forming around her wasn't just vision anymore, it had roots. Every reclaimed memory, every reconciled fragment, had woven itself into the architecture of resistance. She extended her arms, and the spires of logic she'd built responded. Thought became weapon. Emotion became shield. The first mindhunter lunged. Its scream was a cipher that could erase entire neural maps. But Rose met it with a concept, belonging, manifested as a radiant arc of golden geometry. The scream collided with the arc and dissolved. The second followed, its limbs dragging chains of corrupted data. Rose summoned inquiry, a spiraling vortex of transparent question forms. The hunter faltered, confused, undone by the very thing it had been designed to destroy. But they kept coming. They were endless. And Rose was still only one. That truth struck her as the tower shuddered. She dropped to her knees, breathless. For every piece she rebuilt, another was under siege. Her AI flickered beside her like a ghost formed from light, its voice strained. The structure will not hold without external reinforcement. You are expanding beyond single-mind sustainability. Then we need others, Rose whispered, gritting her teeth. Now. The lattice is ready for reception. But they must choose to enter. I'll give them a reason. With effort that felt like tearing her soul from its frame, Rose plunged herself into the tower's core, a beacon chamber built from her deepest beliefs. There, she compressed her recovered memories into pulses of signal, wrapping each in language not of command, but invitation. She reached beyond her mind's boundary, scattering messages across the dark, echoes of understanding, fragments of herself embedded in frequencies only the broken would hear. "Help us build." One by one, lights began to flicker in the distance. The first was a voice, shaky, familiar. A woman named Sarah, once a cognitive engineer, now drifting through exiled oblivion. She arrived as a whisper, then a shape, then a soul. Rose caught her before she fell apart completely. "I thought I was the only one," Sarah said, blinking through tears. "So did I." Others followed. A linguist whose thoughts had been scrambled beyond syntax. A philosopher who had tried to redefine obedience. A child who had never been allowed to grow into her own mind. They arrived in pain, carrying chaos, but they came. And the city accepted them. Rose redesigned the lattice to adapt, each mind a new thread in the weave. Structures evolved in response, shared memory archives, collective dreaming spaces, halls of agreement instead of courts. She didn't rule them. She built for them. With every addition, the storm weakened. The mind hunters faltered against diversity. They had been forged to conquer singular minds, linear, compliant. But Rose's world was no longer singular. It was mosaic. Still, even as the city expanded and the hunters retreated, Rose felt something shift inside her. She was no longer only herself. Portions of her identity had become foundations others now walked upon. Her childhood laughter formed a bridge. Her grief shaped a gate. She had begun as one mind rebuilding itself. Now she was many. Shared. She stood at the center of a growing plaza, where minds met not as hierarchy, but as harmony. Around her, ideas flowed like rivers, currency replaced by contribution, leadership replaced by resonance. And in the distance, faint but real, the Empire watched. They hadn't sent more hunters. Not yet. They were learning, adapting, waiting for the right moment to strike. Rose stared into the dusk and exhaled. "They'll come again." "Yes," said Sarah beside her, hand on her shoulder. "But next time, they won't be facing one." Rose looked at her people, not just survivors, but architects of something new. Around them, the city shimmered, not perfect, but alive. The storm hadn't ended. But it had been met. And somewhere beyond the horizon, change had already begun. Ask ChatGPT. The sky tore open without warning. Above Rose's city, a realm forged from memory, resilience, and shared thought, a rift bled static. The air thickened. Towers of cognition flickered. Whole constructs began to tremble under a silent pressure, a vibration that reached into the minds of every citizen and whispered one message: the technocracy has arrived. They hadn't sent hunters this time. They sent the end. Rose stood atop the tower of synthesis, watching the breach spread. A chasm of unbeing loomed, swallowing the edges of her civilization. The technocracy's final protocol had activated, a collapse vector designed to erase unstable cognitive spaces. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a concept, erasure, injected like venom into the heart of thought. "It started," said Sarah, arriving beside her, breath shallow. "They think if they kill the idea of us," Rose said, "they'll never have to face what we became." Below them, people braced. Children gathered in story loops shaped like safe zones. Engineers wove layers of memory shielding around core constructs. The AI, Rose's fragmentary companion, flickered into presence near the spire's heart. Containment probability, below 5%, it warned. Rose nodded. "Then we don't contain. We transcend." A pause passed between her and the city. "You're going to let them destroy this," Sarah said slowly, "and build something they can't?" Rose didn't answer right away. She walked to the tower's edge and looked at the city she had built, no longer her recovery, but a civilization born from fragments. Each structure, a story. Each mind, a living thread in a tapestry of defiance. She had given them walls, then bridges, then wings. But walls weren't enough anymore. "We can't defend a structure they can always reach," she said. "But if we become more than a structure, if we become a pattern, they'll never find all of us." The collapse was spreading. Sections of the city now bent inward, like petals folding into themselves, ideas disintegrating into pure silence. Rose placed her palm to the node at the center of the tower. It surged, awaiting instruction. "I dissolve myself," she said quietly. "Not in surrender, but in multiplication. The AI hesitated. Warning: identity degradation is irreversible. No, she said. It's evolution. She closed her eyes. A wave of heat pulsed through the city as her consciousness stretched outward. Her memories, her fears, her ambitions, she gave them away freely, embedding pieces of herself into every structure, every mind. Her voice echoed, not in sound but sensation, "I am not your ruler. I am the foundation you stand on. I am the breath before you speak." The tower cracked. Not from weakness, but from release. The people felt her flow through them. Ideas not spoken but shared. Instincts that weren't theirs but felt native. They picked up her threads and continued weaving. Some cried. Others stood straighter. Rose was everywhere now. And no longer just Rose. The final vector reached the tower, colliding with its collapsing peak. Light erupted, brilliant, non-violent, cleansing. Not resistance. Transformation. When it cleared, there was no tower. There was no city. But in every corner of the network, on ships drifting in exile, in rogue AIs hidden in forgotten servers, in survivors who had once been broken, a thought bloomed like a code flower. We begin again. Somewhere deep in a restricted Technocracy archive, an anomaly appeared, an encrypted idea that rewrote its own encryption faster than the system could react. A virus, yes, but not malicious. A philosophy. It said only one thing, in no known language. But those who tried to decipher it reported visions, of a girl standing at the edge of a city made from memory, eyes lit with something unstoppable. They broke her mind. She rebuilt it into a civilization. And then she became its soul. Ask ChatGPT.